Hey there, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Today's Thursday, February 25th, 2021. I'm Trey Crowder. That's Mark Agee. What's up, Mark?
What's up, Trey? How you living, bud?
I'm doing all right.
I forgot to tell you the other day I was working out at the park, and this dude, real nice, civil, made nice conversation, kept safe there, 8, 10 feet apart. We were working out. They got like pull-up bars and shit, in case you have trouble picturing what's happening. But he started playing music from his phone, and he was blasting some QAnon rap music. That took me a few minutes
All
to
right.
decipher.
All right. Well, I have a couple questions about that. Well, first of all, is like, I know you say he seemed nice enough, civil guy, but like, in my opinion, people that blast music from their phones with no headphones or whatever in public places like that, I'm already not on this dude's side. Like you don't have to do that. Headphones are a thing, including wireless ones. But more importantly,
Mhm.
Q rap. What is that? How does that work?
Well, to set this scene, he's the kind of guy who'd be working out in work boots. And he drove up in a 80 like a 1994 F-150. He looked the kind of dude I'd want to like stand around the back of his truck and have a beer with. So I was automatically fully on board with him. But
Right.
he started playing music from his phone. It was like all about how the elites suck, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on board with that. I'm not familiar with this band, but then I started getting into Tom Hanks and the Cabal, and I was like, okay, now I know. Now I know what I'm listening to. But yeah, it was like the shittiest fucking. It was definitely made on GarageBand, and it sounded like System of a Down played over an AM radio. It's kind of what it sounded like.
I actually
Um,
I had a similar experience this week, except not in person. But I found out this week for the first time about this guy named Tom McDonald. Have you ever heard of that
mhm.
guy?
No, not familiar.
He's Canadian but lives in LA now, and he's a white rapper, and he's white with like dreads and face and neck tattoos and all this stuff,
Hmm.
and seems kind of Machine Gun Kelly-ish or whatever. But like you were saying, and then Tom Hanks pops up. All his lyrics are very Trumpy, you know, capital
Hmm.
rioty, whatever. He's got songs like Fake Woke and No Lives Matter and all this shit. And pains me to say, he's been tearing up the Billboard charts, man. Turns out he's like charting, he's doing great. But yeah, that's a weird genre of music, man. Hate
It is.
rap or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's like
Alt rap.
an example of how racism hurts white people too. It's like they're racist. They go, well, obviously rapping must be very easy. I like easy shit.
Right.
I'm gonna rap.
Yeah.
And yeah, just fucking bad at it. And if you said that guy's good, but Tom McDonald's a terrible rap name. He sounds like
Yeah,
a
well, no, okay.
congressman.
I don't
Yeah.
want to. I don't want to put out there that I said Tom McDonald's good. We talked about this on the Well Read podcast this week, and Corey and Drew, first thing they asked me was, okay, but like objectively speaking, could he rap though? And I mean, yeah, well enough. It wasn't like egregiously out of place and terrible if you're not listening to the lyrics. It just sounds like a generic rap song. But then you listen to the
Mhm.
lyrics, you're like, what the fuck? What is going on here? But yeah, generally not a fan. Anyway, let's get into the show. With us as always, producer Matt doing his thing. This is Evening Skews. Tonight, we discuss the long overdue congressional legislation aimed at helping LGBTQ Americans avoid discrimination and how it's being marred and threatened by the hateful idiocy of the GOP. So, just your average Thursday. A lot of people are wrapped up in this story. Everyone from, unsurprisingly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all the way to, maybe a little surprisingly, Mr. fucking Potato Head for some reason. We'll get into it, all that and more on tonight's Skews. But first, as always, the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. Tonight's DD, I hate to say it, is many of my fellow American parents, specifically those of us with small children. I have two little boys. Nothing's more important to me than their safety and well being. But having said that, some of y'all really need to chill the fuck out. So, with that in mind, and with Tuesday's dumbasses in mind, Matt, play this clip, please.
Officers are working to stop a pet online over some inaccurate posts being shared. Social media posts claiming that people narrowly escaped being kidnapped and forced into human trafficking led to Savannah police to launch some investigations.
Sometimes make an assumption this is what was occurring And in a lot of cases, and not all of them, but in a lot of cases, that assumption could be wrong or off, or there's a varied fact that occurred.
That's what police determined on one incident in a social media post this week, where a woman thought a man was trying to distract her while at the gas pump, thinking he was trying to take her children. Police later learned the man was a gas station employee, attempting to tell the woman the pump she was at wasn't working.
You can talk about it all you want, but get them to bed, get us
That's it,
involved.
Matt.
That's the good part, Matt.
That's the only part we needed to know. Again, keep in mind, if y'all weren't here on Tuesday we covered the Coshocton, Ohio Walmart Rose scandal, where a mother and daughter were just trying to spread some love and put roses in people's windshields at a Walmart, and it caused a panic in the community because they were worried that it was involved. It had to do with child sex trafficking, and now you have here some guys just trying to tell her, "Hey, that don't work. You need to do something else." And she's like got both hands out like, "Stay away from my children." Mark, I don't know about go ahead.
First of all, shout out to this Savannah TV station and police department who handled this fucking responsibly by telling people to calm the fuck down, as opposed to what the Ohio people did was telling people to be even more on the lookout, and how people responded by simply having flowers left on their car, and assuming it was definitely child sex trafficking. That was the correct instinct to definitely call them next time. We're a nation that's constantly in various moral panics, and I don't know why we're such panicky people. Whether it's the satanic shit in the 80s, it became like everybody being a pedophile in the 90s. Now apparently we've combined the two, and now we got satanic pedophiles, and they're organized as a business community. So. Do you know, like in the 60s, Congress held hearings, the FBI investigated over the song Louie Louie because parents assumed it was telling their kids to fuck because they couldn't understand the lyrics.
Yes,
we just do this shit over and over and over again, and I don't know why we're so fucking stupid. But yes, if you need to understand how mainstream Q is, this is happening constantly now, and your kid. If you look at any numbers, your kids are safer than they ever have been. Everything's fine.
Right.
There's data on this. Crime is through the floor. It's fine.
So, related to that, if y'all saw my other social media activity earlier today, you know that me and Corey actually put out a very short little mini sketch that was actually very relevant to this. That's not why we're talking about it though, but it just seems like such a thing. But basically the sketch is just, I'm just a regular father who cares very deeply about the safety of children. And I've heard there's a sex trafficking thing going on. And then Corey, who's a QAnon guy, gives me the actual details of it and explains that it's vampire pedophiles harvesting their oxidized hormonal fear in the form of adrenochrome to, propagate their health or their wealth and immortality or whatever. And then I just get up and walk out because, Mark, that's my whole thing with this. We talked about it plenty of times on here. They frame it a lot of times as though those of us who don't believe this shit, as though those of us on the other side of it, don't care about what's going on with children or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not the part. That's not the part of the story that fucks us up. Everyone pretty much cares about the welfare of children. It's all the specific shit you say after that sticks with us a little bit. And it's so wild to me that anybody even gets past that point. The whole thing is so crazy.
Well, that's why it's so spread so rapidly, is because it starts with the Save the Children hashtag, and who could be against saving the children?
Exactly.
Then you get
right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But
I get that. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I get that. Part of what you just said kind of makes sense to me, but also kind of doesn't. And that's my whole point. I agree with you completely. I think they're really smart to start from a foundation of hashtag save the children, because again, that's bipartisan. That's just humanity. Everybody's open to that. But what I don't get is how, when you find out about that and you're like, oh shit, this sounds bad, I should check this out. And then you read the specifics of what they're claiming. I don't know how almost every single person I've ever met in my life doesn't just walk away from it right there, as opposed to all the people that then get sucked into it. I agree it's a good hook, but the
Yeah.
follow up is not. Obviously, it is effective, but it blows my mind. I can't understand it.
There's a writer I like named Jared Yates Sexton. He wrote this piece on his Substack the other day about why Americans are uniquely susceptible to conspiracy theories. And the first thing, the top line is we're extremely lonely people. I mean, we just are. We're very lonely and isolated. There are lots of reasons. Like a conservative would say it's because we don't go to church anymore. A leftist would say it's because we just spend too much time at work. But for whatever reason, like there was a study last year. There's a real male loneliness epidemic. It's one of the reasons the opioid crisis and alcoholism and suicide are through the roof. Is like 20 years ago, you asked a man how many close friends he have. The average answer was like 3 to 4. 10 years ago, it was 1 to 2. Currently, the average American man, if you ask him how many close friends he has, the number is 0. 0 fucking friends. Yeah, I mean, but you think about it,
Why?
like
Because of the internet, you mean? Like they're not counting internet friends and people just live on their phones and stuff now? Is that what's behind that,
yeah.
or what?
I mean, when I think about how many like really close friends I have, like people like if my wife and I were having troubles, who I'd call and go sit down and talk to about it. It's not a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? But that's fairly normal. I mean, you could see some people would say it's toxic masculinity. That's probably part of it. I don't know, but it's just like, surveys are surveys, and unless everybody decided to lie to the polls at once, dudes don't have friends, and women are busy raising the kids, and it's fucking it's just everybody's lonely and isolated for whatever reason. And conspiracy theories spread among lonely people because you spend too much time online. You just feel like something must be wrong. You're just vaguely suspicious, and here we are. People are calling the cops on gas station attendants for trying to help them out with telling them the pump doesn't work. This lady was going to stand at a broken pump for 6 hours. Yeah, sorry. She was going to stand at a broken pump for 6 hours. This guy didn't tell her, and now she assumes he's trying to kidnap her kids.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. Is like I'm sure some of this has happened already, and actually, Bill Burr had a bit like kind of sort of about this idea. But like, do you think all this is going to lead to people just pulling back even more so from trying to help strangers in public or trying to be Samaritans or whatever? The more this type of shit happens, people are going to be afraid to do it because, they don't want to get accused of being a blood-sucking pedophile or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, the last one of these panics that started was probably when To Catch a Predator was on the TV and made everybody think that like all men who liked children were pedophiles, and there was like a huge statistical drop off in men going into teaching elementary school just because they felt like it made them look like perverts. So like I imagine you're gonna have it does have that effect on people. So a whole generation of people that have been passionate teachers just didn't want to look like creeps, so didn't do it. Sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on. We got a couple honorable mentions for you in the Daily Dumbass tonight. First one is anybody who didn't think Tucker Carlson was a hardcore gun guy. Man, you can play the clip whenever you got it. Look how badass.
It is more than an energy project. It's an attack the weak against the strong.
When you so delighted you're a gun guy.
Look how hardcore.
Yeah, so there's at least 2 ways I count he's holding that gun wrong. One, it's way too low on his shoulder. Like that, he's probably pretty sore the day after that. And 2, although an AR is not a very powerful gun, so maybe not. But he's shooting on full auto, which only a moron would ever do. Like they don't even teach that in basic training. They basically have taken that off of trainings in basic training for weapons because. I heard a guy in the Army, he called the full auto setting the zombie setting because like you only would use it if you're about to be overrun, like you're George Custer or you got a bunch of headless zombies coming down a hall at you. And the third thing is he's left-handed. He's using a right-handed AR, so he was just like shooting hot lead into his own chest from the ejection port. So just a fucking all-around genius. That guy definitely loves guns. The guy who grew up going to private school in San Francisco, the heir to the Swanson chicken frozen dinner fortune. He's definitely a populist. So you should definitely believe the shit he says.
Yeah, they. I mean, I know they've always been that way. I recognize that, but I feel like there's a real trend with them lately of this like leaning into trying to be like Avengers or whatever. We've shown all the campaign ads from other Republican Congress people and whatnot that are literally made like action movie trailers, like jumping out of planes and all this shit and pulling guns and whatnot. And it's like they're just really leaning into trying to be badass. And some of, I mean, you know, one old boy's got an eye patch, you know, but if there's anybody out there who can't pull it off, it's fucking Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, at least what Dan Crenshaw jumped out of an airplane for his ad. That's fucking that is objectively cool as shit. I'm not gonna
Right.
like shit it, but the ad was dumb as hell, and that's what like when you strip away everything else, and that's all this polling about this stuff lately is like Republicans have drifted to the center economically. But they have no like they're gonna some of them are gonna vote for the stimulus. Mitt Romney proposed child tax care credit. It'll probably get some Republican votes. I mean, the child support. The government's going to send everybody checks for having kids, whatever the bill's called or whatever. But like at the same time, they've turned sharply right anti-democracy, and all they have left is performative bullshit like that.
Right.
Like all they do is shit post and jump out of airplanes and make TV ads. That's the whole entirety of the movement is Tucker Carlson shooting a gun wrong and everybody thinks it looks cool.
Right.
So,
yeah, and we'll talk more about the performative bullshit a little bit later on, but we have one more honorable mention for you. And this is related to, you know, we've covered a very popular sub-segment of the Daily Dumbass has been people involved with the Capitol riots and how they went about hiding their identities and whatnot. And we've got another one for y'all. We've got an update for you. So, Matt, you can put up the screen grab whenever you've got it. Yes, a Capitol rioter texted his ex during the insurrection to call her a moron, and she then turned him in, and he's since been arrested. Does not looking good for him. There's no limit to like the dumbassery of those people on that day and how they went about the whole thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, first of all, don't text a confession to a federal crime to your ex in the same text where you call her a moron because
right.
This
you
isn't
don't
like
even
anything
need
that could
that
go good for
last
you.
part, by the way.
Yeah,
just like don't do the first part. But if you do the first part, most especially don't call her a moron in the midst of it. Just begging her to turn your ass in or him, I guess. But either way.
Remember a few minutes ago we were talking about how lonely people go insane.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these guys have been turned in by their exes and they were recognized by their exes and whatever. It's like there's such an extremely divorced guy. I mean, Trump is like the supreme like capital D divorce guy. Like if divorce guy was a superhero, it'd be Donald Trump with a DG on his chest.
Yeah, right.
Just like everybody in Mar-a-Lago has like collects divorces like their Pokemon. It's the weirdest subgenre of people. And they just really hook in with the anger and bitterness and loneliness and not giving a shit about anything other than like performing online. That's really what they connect to about Trump, I gotta feel. And the base of the castle was the Capitol was stormed by divorce guys.
Largely, yes. Yeah,
yes.
Nobody's talking about that aspect of it, Mark. You know what I mean? It's all like, is it anti-government people? Is it white supremacists? Is it both? Whatever. Nobody's talking about. It's divorce guys that also are racist who hate the government, you know? Like
the entry point to hating the government is family court, Trey. That's what we're learning
right.
here.
Yeah. It's very much a correlation versus causation thing, too. You know what I mean? It's like, are they divorced or, you know, did they get divorced because they hate the government or do they hate the government because they got divorced? Or is it just that everything is
I think
shitty and they hate it?
a judge gave her my house, Trey. So goddamn it, we're overthrowing, they're burning the whole system down. I think that's the cause and effect.
So moving into the story of the day, so far at least, Congress is working on the Equality Act, and it passed the House, the Equality Act, and it's an amendment to the Civil Rights Act that, if passed, would amend said act to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in employment, housing, public accommodations, public education, federal funding, credit, and the jury system. So it's just giving advanced federal protections to LGBTQ people. It's passed the House in 2019, but then of course failed after that. I mean, it's been a thing that's been, you know, in the works for a while, and this is where we're at right now on it. And a lot of people are not happy, but they don't know exactly how to go about fucking it up, right?
Well, I mean, my favorite part of this bill is the jury system part, because I kind of feel like LGBT people are like, wait, we don't want the right to jury duty. Can we take that one off the fucking list?
You can cut that last part out if you want. That's fine.
You can yada that part. So basically, this is with it, like the Supreme Court basically made this the law of the land in 2020 in a Supreme Court decision called Bostock versus Clayton County. But they didn't define gender identity, so that's basically what this bill is attempting to do. It's largely symbolic, because 29 states already have a law like this in the books. But symbolism is good to stand up for people's rights, because you got this over in the Senate today. This is just to compare what fucking how shitty these dudes are. This has nothing to do with this bill. This is just Rand Paul at a confirmation hearing for the Deputy's Undersecretary for Health and Human Services, a woman named Rachel Levine, who just happens to be trans. Listen to how fucking Rand Paul talks to her.
Senator Paul.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned. Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund.
That's probably enough, man. We got the gist.
Genital mutilation is recognized.
Yeah, he then goes into the comparison that he's making is that genital mutilation is on a par with like hormonal therapies for transgender children and things like that, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, and you have to go talk to an expert about how transitioning genders actually works, but who's much smarter about it than me. But like, if you basically doctors don't recommend hormone therapy for kids except as an absolute last resort for kids that you feel like are on a path to suicide if they don't get it. So that's one part of it. Also, like gender mutilation, I'm not even getting into why all this is bullshit. It's just Rand Paul spouting dumb nonsense about trans people coming for your kids, forcibly converting your kids, or whatever is happening. And so anyway, that's why this law is important, is because it's important to tell these people to go fuck themselves and to publicly shame them.
Right. Exactly. And that's part of, first of all, just as a note, Dr. Levine there at the end of that responded to his question by saying, Senator, thank you for taking an interest in this aspect of the, just very much more polite and professional than I could have been, is what I'm saying. It's another example of like people in like minority positions, having to, all the shit they have to put up with. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to just swallow to, know, because otherwise you become a problem or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, she couldn't just look at him and be like, you know what? Fuck you. She just can't do that. Even though he couched it in all these like professional sounding, words and phrases he put together. But what he said was extremely offensive. But you can't respond in kind to these people.
And her job, by the way, has nothing to do with, like, it's just working for Health and Human Services. She's the former Surgeon General of Pennsylvania, I think, and she's been, after that, she oversaw the state's COVID response, during which she's apparently done a great job to rave reviews, is why she's being offered this promotion. And it's not like she's Deputy Undersecretary of HHS for turning kids trans or some shit. Like, it's just like it's just a regular job, but she has to be asked about her genitals in a fucking congressional hearing. Like, it's just like, I was born liking to have sex with a lady and being comfortable with being a dude and all that shit. I hate to use the word lucky because that sounds like the other way is pejorative or some shit or something. But like, it's
objectively
like
easier to be what you are.
It's easier to not be asked about your how your dick hangs at a goddamn job interview, which is basically what just happened there.
Right. And so the other thing I was going to say is, like, they're still, not that it's surprising, but they're still on this, like, they're basically circling back to the transgender bathroom thing, man, which is like literally what my first big liberal redneck video was about 5 years ago. And it was a fabricated controversy then, but they're still on about it because they're trying to couch this like opposition to the Equality Act as being like, they're like, well, it's not about, it's not about disagreeing with their way of life or anything like that or being hateful. What it's really about is it prohibits people from stripping their rights based on this basis, and they try to justify it by being like the safety of, you can't just let grown men walk into female bathrooms and things like that because little girls would be in danger. It's literally the same argument they were making 5 years ago that they're bringing up again now.
Can I say something absolutely fucking obvious? Is that throughout all of human history, 99% of human bathrooms have been non-gender labeled.
Right.
The bathroom in my house has no gender label. Everybody can use it, right? The bathroom, the putting a men's and women's sign in a restroom comes from like when indoor plumbing was existed. And they had to put it in restaurants. Restaurants wanted to be able to put 10 toilets in the same room without spending more money on real estate. That's all that came from, right? It was invented for that. And even then, I've never been in a bar where women actually waited in the line for the women's bathroom. They always go in the men's bathroom because it's quicker and shorter, right? Coffee shop, everybody goes in whatever bathroom's open because they're single seaters. It doesn't matter what you put on the door. So they're trying to codify the law in the name of being natural, a very unnatural way to be, which is everyone just pees and poops where there's a hole to put it. You know, like
yes,
yeah,
and
so.
The other thing,
and by the way, that what I say about the North Carolina bathroom bill is they were trying to just like when they put gay marriage on the out a constitutional amendment in Ohio in 2004, so Bush could keep the presidency to try to gin up the rubes. That's what they're trying to do. North Carolina was trying to do 5 years ago, and the Democrats still won the governor's mansion. It didn't work, and they're still running this ineffectual, hateful campaign to lose by 2 touchdowns. I don't fucking understand.
It's because they have to, with the North Carolina thing in particular, these like state level measures that pop up that are insane. Because I'm from Tennessee, we've done plenty of them. I've always thought it was like just a way to make your name or something, like a way to get headlines and put yourself out there. Especially if you're at that level, you got to do something to sort of get yourself known, you know. So they literally fabricate a scandal or a controversy or whatever out of thin air and then just roll with that. But again, they are still going with it 5 years later. The other thing, and you talked about this, I think, on Tuesday's show or one of last week's shows, but the other thing they're really hinging this argument on that they have is how devastating this measure would be to the world of female sports, of women's sports, which they have always cared so much about. The Republican Party, known, longtime supporters of women's sports, very passionate about everything that's going on in women's sports. But yes, that's the other side of the argument they're making right now. It's like, we can't do this. This will destroy women's sports in this country.
I want to meet the person. Like, look, I'm not going to try to rag on women's sports because I'm not one of those guys who thinks I could dominate the WNBA or some shit. Because those women would absolutely smoke me in 2 seconds on a basketball court. It's a really dumb opinion to have. But anybody who's been to an American high school, try to imagine a boy who's like, I know my path to be cool. I will say I'm a girl so I can play women's volleyball
and dominate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, you dominate. Volleyball's hard, but secondly, what path is that to anything? It's like, what is? How do you step 3 money? What is it? What the fuck is it? Like, what are you getting out of it? That the person doing this doesn't exist. I know the right will always have examples. Like there was one some track athlete who was born a woman but had a naturally high testosterone and kicked her out of the sport. Which that's just like a natural gift. That's like being born tall or something. I don't understand why that would have it keep you from being able to compete. When you start trying to regulate this shit, you end up in psychotic wormholes like that. But I don't know.
My thing is just them acting like they give a shit, which I know that's their whole thing, is acting like they give a shit about things that they don't. But I just feel like women's sports is a particularly egregious example of that for the people that we're talking about. Republican lawmakers and leadership or whatever trying to act like they care deeply about the integrity of women's athletics in this country is just fucking hilarious to me. Asinine.
Yeah. Matt's making a big point. It's the opposite of Title IX. It's like the conservatives and other defenders of women's sports, because that's laughable for anybody who knows the politics of college sports. They spent the last 40 years saying it was ridiculous, like overly woke nonsense to even have women's sports because they don't generate a profit for the schools they're at. Right. Now they're like, we got to protect it. But go on your point about how they always pretend like they're protecting the rights of religious people. Representative Al Green had a pretty good retort to that today. It's probably we'll just let him talk because it's a pretty good speech. And,
I love this.
Yeah.
And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. You used God to enslave my foreparents. You used God to segregate me in school. You used God to put me in the back of the bus. Have you no shame? God created every person in this room. Are you saying that God made a mistake? This is not about God, it's about men who choose to discriminate against other people because they have the power to do so. My record will not show that I voted against Mr. Cicilline having his rights. My record will show that when I had the opportunity to deliver liberty
Gentleman's
and
time has
justice for
expired.
all, I voted for rights for all.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Love how they start giving him the light at the end there. Like, all right, you wrap this up.
I understand they got rules,
Come down.
Robert's rules of order and time limits and shit, but like, let the man was obviously gearing up for a big finish. You can just let him go ahead. So Congress is full of a lot of weirdos, and Al Green's kind of a cool weirdo. He's only one scandal. I just wanted to bring this up because then guys are talking about sexual discrimination. He was accused of sexual discrimination in kind of a funny incident. This woman who apparently he was sleeping with accused him of offering her money or job to keep quiet about it. And then she dropped that lawsuit. He countersued her for trying to blackmail him. Then he dropped his lawsuit. Then they both put out a joint statement saying, yeah, they both guys got too mad and they're over it, which is that's maturity. Yeah, that's growth.
No, absolutely. Yes. That's what you'd like for that to end, all things being equal. That's the preferred outcome, is both parties just being like, look, we got a little heated.
Yeah, the sex was too good. We got mad after when it ended, and we didn't mean to do each other. It's okay. Moving on is what you said about like people using this shit, even though they know it's a failed political maneuver to try to build their brands. That brings us to our good friend, Large Brain Marjorie Taylor Greene, who she got kicked off the Educational Committee, and it's worth reminding people the whole reason she wanted to be on the Education Committee was to rail about Title IX and trans shit. So she's using this opportunity to really claw back that ground she lost. If you
hang on, I think we should the context of it. She in the Capitol, her office is right across from Marie Newman, right? Is that right? Marie Newman, yes, Congresswoman Marie Newman, who has a trans daughter, and so she put up a trans flag outside of her office, and this is how MTG responded to that. I'll just show the Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here we go.
Yeah. It's silent for those listening to the podcast, but it just shows her hanging a sign. It says, there are two genders, male and female. Believe the science. Trust the science, or whatever.
The ending phrase of that, trust the science. Like, again, I've said it for years. I say it all the time. These people are immune to irony, man. Like, the idea of her making this grandiose, bigoted point she has by finishing it with trust the science with everything else she represents in her political career is just, I don't know, the audacity, the shamelessness of that. They just consistently blow my mind. I don't give a fuck about science. She don't know shit about science. And what she does know, she don't like. Ask her about the science of fucking climate change. You know what I mean? And see how she
ask her about adrenochrome.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It fucking
Jewish space lasers. Yeah.
Jewish space lasers. Literal thing that she has propped up in the past. Not even a joke. It's like, that's a real thing she said or believes.
I mean, you already revealed it, but to me, that was the big twist to this, is that Marjorie didn't start this online shit posting. Newman, probably good for her, was standing up for her daughter. She hung a rainbow flag up inside of her house outside of her office after MGT was saying some insane shit yesterday. So Marge's response was to that. But I guess that's what Congress is now, is just like, we're in the shit posting civil war. That's just how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right. That like, yeah, man. You have two Congress people whose offices are opposite each other in the halls of the Capitol, like you said, going on there like a shit posting crusade against each other. But again, I'm not equating the two, because again, Marie Newman has a child who's transgender and put up a trans pride flag. That is a completely different thing. But that was like filmed and tweeted and then turned into a filmed and tweeted response to it that involved, a hateful message going up against across the wall. And like you said, the fact that that's what American politics is now, American diplomacy or whatever. That's what it looks like. Is like Twitter wars, Twitter finger shit posting wars amongst Congress people. Is
Matt
shame.
Made this point. This is what happens. You elect people from the suburbs. Just fights over like homeowners association fights over this height of fences and like what you can hang as a decoration. Yeah,
that's very funny and very accurate. Yes, it is some HOA type shit. Like people just trying to, passive aggressively do their yards in a certain way that will, piss off the neighbors or whatever.
And then, I mean, yes, you're absolutely correct that there's something extremely different about posting something supportive that's prideful as opposed to posting something that's hateful and negative. And like those are two different things. But still, it's a very weird place we're at as a country. Right. But speaking of trans fight for trans stuff, let's get to the extremely fun, stupid, silly one as opposed to the never-ending hellscape with one little bright. Oh, before we move on. That bill probably has no chance of being passed unless they eliminate the filibuster.
Exactly.
So
because they would need 10 Republican senators to support it in order to avoid the filibuster, right?
Yeah.
So y'all thought it was good that we got control of the Senate, and it's better than not doing that. But here we are. As long as the filibuster exists,
if you put it on the floor, you might get 5 Republican votes. I could probably name a couple, but you're not going to get enough. So anyway, also today, I don't know whoever decided what we're going to talk about for the day decided it was going to be about trans stuff, but not even the congressional bill, because the fight online was about Mr. Potato Head. So Hasbro announced in a pretty adorable video that they were rebranding Mr. Potato Head to be, they're still going to be Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head, but the brand name is going to be Potato Head. I don't know why. Probably because they had some focus groups to say that people were confused about why the brand was Mr. Potato Head, but there's also a Mrs. Potato Head in a subcategory, kind of like there's Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man, right? I don't know. Hasbro's $1 billion corporation. They don't do anything that would involve that is going to make them make less money. So this is about money somehow.
I had literally no idea that the umbrella brand for the Potato Head franchise or whatever was officially Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know that was. Who even thinks about it that way? You've got Mr. Potato Head, Mrs. Potato Head, and then there's, they could bring out other potato heads or anyway. Go ahead though. They made their move.
Yeah, so everyone immediately took this as like Hasbro's trying to turn our kids trans because again, moral panics is all we fucking do, and it had some pretty insanely good responses. Throw this first one up here, Matt. The response to so you can't read it. Let me it's a little blurry. I'll read it to you. So the AP story says Mr. Potato Head is no longer a Mr. Hasbro, the company that makes the potato-shaped plastic toy, has given the Spud a gender-neutral new name, Potato Head. The change will appear on boxes this year. And Mark Dice, as a conservative radio host, responded to that. It's time for Republican states to secede.
Dude, what if this was the thing? What if this was the thing that led to the actual secession movement? But secondly, they're like furious that they're like Hasbro's trying to act like potatoes don't have genders. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, try being a good God-fearing male potato and Hasbro trying to act like potatoes ought not have genders when everybody knows you either got dick potatoes or you got vagina potatoes, and that's how potatoes work. And I'm aware, biologist, that plants do have whatever, but that ain't the point. You know what I mean? Potatoes ain't got dicks and balls. What? It's
also. The whole point of the toy is you can
Right.
mix and match the body parts.
Right. Make
Mr.
them look
Potato
like you
Head's
want
been
to.
trans this whole
Yeah.
fucking time. You can put the woman's lips in the
Yes,
male
you're right.
potato,
You're
the
right.
woman's eyes, and then you get batty eyelashes, but the man's ears, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah,
So
man.
it's just like, yeah, Mr. Potato has been probably America's most progressive toy since it was debuted in the 1960s, whatever. I mean, so up that second slide, Matt, if you got it. This guy fucking made a meme of all the canceled.
I can't believe this. I know
yeah,
it's
so-
real, but I can't. This is so yes.
Yeah. Our canceled characters welcome a new hero today. Pour out some syrup for Mr. Potato Head. He saved our lives. We saved our lives. What the fuck? I don't know what that
Yes.
is referring to. But it's Mr. Potato Head entering cancel culture heaven with the Redskins logo, the Cleveland Indians logo, the dog from Paw Patrol, who I think you know the name of.
Chase. That's Chase, everybody. Chase from Paw Patrol.
The Land of Lakes Native American lady, Aunt Jemima syrup, Uncle Ben from Rice, and of course our hero, Cara Dune, Gina Carano from Mandalorian. But I can't even get my brain around this. Like how attached to you are to the logo on the Land of Lakes box?
Okay, so I know you sent this in the group text earlier with Corey and Drew in it or whatever, and Corey's like, "Oh, that's hilarious," and then Corey goes, "Oh, wait a minute, that's for real." Like he looked in the guy. So like this dude, that's not at all a joke. When he says, "Mr. Potato Head, you saved our lives. We are eternally grateful," he means that. Or not means it, but you know what I mean. He's not taking the piss, as our friends across the pond would say. He's making a sincere point or trying.
He's not being ironic. He misses the Aunt Jemima syrup bottle. Yeah.
All right.
And again, this is all based upon a misunderstanding of Mr. Potato Head's branding, which Hasbro put out a tweet that clarified, yes, there's still Mr. Potato Head. There's still Mrs. Potato Head. Just the umbrella band is being Potato Head, the Mr. Potato Head version. That's it.
That's it. Like that. Everything about that makes complete fucking sense if you're a rational human being. Do you know what I mean? Like there's, not that I give a shit about. Yeah, there you go. Right there's that. Hold that taut, he says. I like how they opened it. Hold that taut. Your main spub, Mr. Potato Head, isn't going anywhere. He says Potato Head brand name and logo are dropping the Mr. That's not true. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't going anywhere. They'll remain so. And Potato Head is the umbrella branding or whatever. But what I was going to say is not that we care about gender roles or norms or anything in this household. We don't. But it's just like I'm Trey Crowder. My wife is Katie Crowder. We are what, Mark, as a family? The Crowders. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like naming the Potato Head, like making the umbrella designation being Potato Head. This is the Potato Head family or whatever, and it includes Mr. and Mrs. and hell, add other kinds of potato. They're fucking potatoes, sentient potatoes who, like you said, have been transgender. Have been trans friendly since they started because that's the whole point of the toy. Like, what are we
it's like
talking about?
There is that thing where wives would fully take their husband's name to be like, yo, Katie would be Mrs. Trey Crowder, right? That was a thing at one point. And I guess that's what they want for Mr. Potato Head.
Right.
This is Mrs. Mr. Potato Head. They're very happily married.
Mrs. Mr. Potato Head.
They also broke, even if they think that should be the rule, they got fooled by it a couple months ago. Remember, they thought they discovered a dead person voting for Biden, and because this guy had say his name was Joe Smith. This Joe Smith had voted. And they went to the house and asked her, and was like, no, it's his wife, Mrs. Joe Smith. Like the dead guy didn't vote, his widow did. So like they don't even understand their own fucking rules. Yeah,
no,
it's all exhausting.
Of course they don't. All right, we got another riot update, right?
Well, let's go ahead and throw the comments, and I'll just ask you. Let's do the question form to get the question started. Did you see this riot update where they keep saying it was Antifa, but keep catching fascists? The Bellingcat figured out. Bellingcat, if you don't know, is an online intelligence gathering collective, kind of like Anonymous, but they're public. And what they do is they scrape social media to look for evidence of various things. Like they solved a couple Russian poisonings, for example, and were able to track some stuff going on in Syria. Anyway, they dug through the woman who was arrested for stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop. This brain genius turns out is a supporter of Adam Waffen, who does some social media posts where she wears wears a hat that has the logo that the Christchurch shooter wore, and she's doing Heil Hitler in using a filter scheme that's called Fashwave, which is fascist love aesthetics. So that picture on the right is Fashwave. That's what they call it.
There again, like this is another example of what I was saying earlier about how they're like, this is like from Watchmen or something. It looks like the way it's such try hard badassery aesthetic that they go for. You know what I mean? Like you're already standing there howling Hitler in your fucking Instagram post or whatever, but she has to give herself laser eyes and this negative filter or whatever just to add to how fucking super cool it is. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, fascism is all about aesthetics in the first place. It's like takes away all meaning from all like material meaning from people's lives and gives them like things to do to feel part of a group. And like, but the Nazis at least got like Hugo Boss suits and Mercedes-Benz cars and Wagner. These guys get that Tom McDonald rapper guy, an Instagram filter. And and fucking Donald Trump. It's the weirdest movement. I'll never be able to understand what they find so cool about it and appealing.
Right? Not
that Nazism's appealing, but the suits. Objectively, the suits look cool. Goose stepping, if you didn't know what they were walking about, was a pretty cool way to walk.
Right. I know. It's like just that whole like. It's so hard for me to wrap my. Because if it was like. Just that, they were always this way, and then there was an opportunity for them to embrace what's becoming a more mainstream ideology. Like, of course, they're going to take it. You know what I mean? Like, that makes sense. But the fact that this girl, her name's Riley, whatever, she's like 21 or 22 years old. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that so many people are getting roped into it daily and have been the whole time, that's the part that blows my mind. If it was just a bunch of old, like, guys that have been Klan members for the past 30 years or whatever, and now they're just doing this because this is cool now or whatnot.
Yeah.
I could get that because they're, Thomas Ludiana says, y'all kinda. Yeah, exactly. But the fact that I don't know how this ropes in new people. I really don't. Even like dumbass racist people, because it's just so uncool. How do you look at Donald Trump and look at him and be like, that's my Dr. Doom right there. You know what I mean? Like, he's basically our Thanos. Fucking his flabby ass. Like, it just, I don't get it. It's so wild to me.
I mean, to borrow a line from Big Lebowski, like, say what you want about the tenets of Al Qaeda, but at least it's a belief system. These people don't believe in anything. Like they've lost the plot between like ironic shit posting and living their lives, and they don't like. Here's a woman usually like a guy like Tim McVeigh would say he's like fighting for the soul of America, and this is like the blood of the blood of the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants, or however the fuck you put it. But this woman doesn't even really identify as a patriot because she's trying to steal Nancy Pelosi's laptop to sell to Russia for profit. Right? So it's not even like.
Didn't they have that video of her? You can hear her voice saying to some other writer, "Wear a glove, dumbass," and then her gloved hand reaches right into frame and picks up the laptop and pulls it back or whatever.
Yeah, she's doing a cat burglary for freedom. It's just like,
don't want to do anything stupid. Inez or Inez Sinai. Oh, it's a palindrome. I get it. Inez Sinai says she's super weird the more you find out and read about this girl, which she's, I mean, I don't know. Hell, honestly, man, she might just be an actual crazy person, in which case, somebody help her. I don't know, but yeah, it's wild.
I mean, like, look, we've all got our craziness.
Right.
Like, once it crosses over into behavior, it kind of doesn't even matter what your motivations are, except to like a clinical psychologist or the FBI when they're trying to figure out what to charge you with.
I agree, yeah.
It doesn't matter. I don't care whether you're kidding and just confused. You end up storming the Speaker of the House's office in a mob that caused the deaths of 7 people. You're in trouble.
Yeah. And Mark? What do you think? Schmeirier? Schmeirier?
I'd go Schmeier.
Schmeier and Schmeier, and again, every week, every episode, I have to apologize to people for how I pronounce things. But
I think people are making up names to fuck with you just because they know you can't read.
They're not. There should be. Ann said this is not just a redneck thing, and that's what's so disturbing. I know that both of us could not agree with you more. That's been a thing ever since, well, I mean, for forever, but since Trump first cropped up, and it was blamed on rednecks to begin with, as though 40% of Marin County, California didn't vote for Donald Trump or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, rednecks have been the scapegoat for these other types of fucking lunatics. That rednecks also, the Venn diagram overlaps, but still, everybody just categorizes it as rednecks only in their head, and that's not the case. There's a whole bunch of shitty white people out there.
Shit. Do you know the area of Los Angeles, the two areas of Los Angeles that went super heavy for Trump, or Beverly Hills and the Pacific Palisades, man?
Right,
and,
of course, rich people.
The people I've heard about from Los Angeles,
the
people from LA that I've heard got arrested for the Capitol riot. There was a USC student that's like a $50,000 a year private school, and or there's a UCLA student. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but either way, a kid going to a good school. And a woman who owned a beauty salon in Beverly Hills. So this is not. We're not taking the blame for this one.
Right.
So sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we're there, but y'all are there too. Other white people, we're saying. John Orbit Bainbridge says, "Good eye on that palindrome." Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, I get something right every now and then. Your initials are JOB. What are you trying to say? Now I'm picking up on clues and everybody's names out here. But yeah, that even before Trump and all that shit, it's always hard to talk about because, like, especially with my accent and everything else, it sounds like I'm being an apologist or whatever. But I've always gotten real fired up too about the rest of the country acting like the South is the official racist part of America. You know what I mean? And my whole thing was always like, I'm not saying the South ain't racist. Of course it is. I'm saying America is racist. Like, and when everybody else just points at the South and says that's the racist part, it lets fucking Minnesota and Boston and everywhere else off the hook, which is bullshit. Like,
I've heard more pro athletes complain about playing in Boston than Atlanta. So whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the Klan was started in Indiana. The Klan actually ran Indiana at one point, I think. So I don't know what to tell people who hang on to that stuff. But I'm a Southerner who went to college and right along the Mason-Dixon line. So it was like, oh, you're from the small town in the South. You fuck your cousin and hate minorities. And I'm like, people would ask me accuse me of being anti-Semitic, and literally I never encountered any anti-Semitism until I got to college because there were no Jewish people.
I know exactly what you mean. Yes. Again, it's like you say that and it's like, it's not letting anybody off the hook. It's just true. Cause like you said, no one was anti-Semitic where I grew up because there were no Jewish people for 200 miles or whatever. Like literally no one there met a Jew, knew a Jew. They weren't coming up in these people's conversations. If they knew about them, sure, they'd have been bigoted towards them too. I'm sure they would have.
Oh yeah,
but it wasn't.
Sure. It's like,
but it just wasn't a thing.
I'm not making excuses for the South. I'm saying that everyone else has their shit too.
Right.
But like if you come up to my dad and been like, you'd be like, you should be really suspicious of Jewish people, and he'd be like, why? I'd be like, because they're a secretive insular group that controls global finance. He'd be like, okay, what's global finance? I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I wonder though, because me and you were around the same age. It's been a long time since we were growing up in these places. I do wonder if that maybe isn't different nowadays. Do you know what I mean? Like with the internet and the propagation of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and things like that, and how it's kind of gotten wrapped up together, that it wouldn't surprise me if that's not really true anymore. But yeah, when I was growing up and when you were growing up, they didn't know about Jewish people one way or another. So it didn't factor in.
Literally everything I knew about anti-Semitism was from jokes on Seinfeld.
I've told this story a million times, but I don't think I've told it on this show. I'll make a brief version of it, but this is true, just to illustrate my point. My high school girlfriend, who wasn't, the brightest crayon in the box, let's say, I was at her house talking to her stepdad about pro wrestling, like you do. And then me and her left to go to town, like you do. and I was still on wrestling. And so I said something about how I liked Bill Goldberg a lot. And she was like, why? And I said, well, he started out undefeated. He was just real badass, everything. And then I was like, and also, he's a Jewish guy. He's kind of breaking stereotypes. I feel like you don't see that a lot. Big Jack, badass Jewish guy. That's cool to me. Anything that breaks stereotypes. And she goes, and she's not fucking around, not joking at all. She goes, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, Bill Goldberg, he's a Jewish man. And she looks at me completely serious and she goes, Trey, there are no Jews. And I was like, what? And she goes, really? Hitler killed all the Jews, Trey. And like, she genuinely believed that. And I had to be like, oh my God, you can go ahead and drop me off. No, I dated her for like 2 more years after that. Pickings were slim, y'all. You have to understand, it's a small town. Matt says, is she into Q now? Oh, he says, isn't she into Q now? No, that's my other ex-girlfriend, Matt. Thank you. That's my college ex-girlfriend who's super into Q and Parlor now.
Yeah.
But that's the level of ignorance that exists,
I mean, in her defense,
Jewish people was not everybody. She was a special case, but still, just that's illustrative, I hope.
In her defense, Adolf gave it his best shot.
He sure did.
I'm not saying that
you
was
support
good
it. He just I know, right? She clearly had just learned. She had learned about the Holocaust. It wasn't her saying it was a good thing or nothing, but she clearly had learned about it, and she interpreted it or misremembered it as Jewish people were wiped out by Adolf Hitler, and that's what she thought. And a very quick story about this girl. One time we were in my bedroom just laying there, and she like looks up to me super cutely or whatever, and she's like, tell me a story, Trey. And I was like, what the fuck? All right. And then I literally just told her like start to finish the plot of Armageddon, the movie, but as though I was just making it up, I was like, once there was an asteroid coming or whatever. And at the end of it, she was like, that was amazing. Someone should make that into a movie. And I was like, yeah. So anyway, I'm saying y'all can see what we're dealing with here. Those are 2 completely true stories.
This is a terrible transition, but speaking of the Holocaust, a movie I've never seen that I want to recommend. It came out in 2001, but I just watched it recently. I never was aware of it. It's called Conspiracy, and it's pretty much a real-time hour-and-a-half movie with Kenneth Branagh, Stanley Tucci, Colin Firth, and some other really good actors.
Yeah,
Tom Hiddleston's in it.
That.
And it's basically the meeting where they got together to decide on the final solution and watch it. And it's just like watching these dudes leave the room to go vomit while they're having an office meeting about what the plan they're about to carry out.
Wasn't that an HBO? Isn't that an HBO thing? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max if you have it, but it's worth renting on iTunes if you can find it. Just like the banality of evil, man. I don't understand how you can just sit in the office and plan how to execute a bunch of people. It's weird.
Yeah. Sorry, I was laughing because Gary Fox says, "Oh my God, I want more girlfriend stories." There it is. I predicted Matt's pull again.
I texted y'all a good one last night when the band Buck Cherry came up. I forget why we were talking about Buck Cherry.
Yeah.
But for a while in my 20s, I dated this girl who I met in a comedy club because I was spending all my time in comedy clubs, and she was a burlesque dancer who was back there in MySpace. So when I went to her MySpace page, MySpace would autoplay music.
Yep.
The song that autoplayed when you went to her profile was "Crazy Bitch" by Buck Cherry, which at the time was the opposite of a red flag for me. Right.
Yeah. You're into like, oh, she fucks so good, I'm on top of it. That's what you were thinking.
That's the song, man. Yeah.
Yeah. This is true. I had an autoplay song on my MySpace. And I just liked the song, but the chorus of the song was by a guy named Marty Casey, and it was called actually don't even remember the name of it, but part of the chorus goes, screams very loudly, "One man can make a difference." That's what I had. So I've been yes, it's true. I've been this pretentious since
you and I are very different. You're such different people because I would only blast a song that had something about one person makes no difference.
Yeah, no.
That song I'd blast.
Casualty. That was the name of it. Marty Casey, a song called Casualty. Yes. Yeah, screaming, one man can make a difference. That's what you heard when you came onto my Facebook, my MySpace page, which had just like pictures of me with a chin strap and a beanie or whatever, and a fucking,
You look like
and
John
a fucking bonfire instead. There was like, one man can make a difference. Lord God. Oh, anyway, okay. Well, we're out of time, but I want to remind everybody we will be back on Tuesday at the normal time, normal place, all that good stuff. However, as a reminder, March is about to start. Starting in March, starting on Tuesday, we're going to a weekly format for reasons we've mentioned a million times before. So we will be here Tuesday. We'll talk about it maybe some more then. But yeah, come with us Tuesday. And then after that, it'll just be Tuesdays going forward, but it'll still be a good time. And we hope y'all join us. So thank you, love.